I had logged this back in, I don't know, 2003, 2004 time frame. And I literally have not been back up in here to look. Close to 15 years. And it did not come back as quick as the other parts of the woods. I've logged some later, it came back quicker. And part of it's just because of the different species that are out here. And, you know, some of it, because back then I cut it real hard, you know. One of those live and learns. But it is coming back. And one of the things I'm finding is really nice hickory trees. And I'm just going to leave them right alone. And nice and straight. You know, that one there, you know, it's funny because I can remember some of these trees. I just found an ash tree, one that I had left. And it's a beautiful tree right here. Look at this thing. But you start looking up there and there's some dead branches. So, oh man, I really don't want to take this tree because it's kind of like that hope you have that it can be the mother tree to bring the other ones back. But that tree did not have leaves on it this year. So I'm hoping I can get some stuff out of it. Now, where to go with it? Get rid of some of the poplar. And those are coming back nice. A couple big maples we left in there. Get rid of some of the beech. Clear cut some of that beech. I think what I'd do is when we do get-togethers, we'll just come down and take out beech. You know, you really can't take enough of it. It's a weed tree. There's no value in it. And I guess as we get down in here, it is coming back, I guess. The soft maple. I can see another blowdown over there. I probably ought to go down and look at that at some point too. See if there's anything in that. I want to leave as much of this as possible. I don't want to mess with it. I want to come back. I do see another ash tree down in there. And it's dead too. Yeah, these two hickories are nice. Nice straight trees. So it's just the ash that's coming down, that's it. Do a little bit of prep work. And we get this one down and see if we can back down and pull it up and out with the tractor. Well, this is another tree where I'll do the quite open face cut. I'll cut pretty low, but with the roots the way they are, I can't get too low because the handle will bounce into those roots, you know. And then do a bore cut, and I'll cut about a third of the hinge out to make sure I don't get a pull. You see where the hinge is going to end up being? It's going to end up being right about in here, you know. So yeah, it's into the trim wood. So that big open face cut doesn't lose a lot of, you know, board footage out of it, right? And if I can get down into the stump more, now it's a few inches here, a few inches there. But see how that stump is. You know, I have to cut a fair amount off of that root there for the root flare. I mean, I guess I could just cut straight down and just leave it be. But that leaves a really messy stump to pull over. I think that's a bad technique. You know, I've seen that before where instead of actually taking out the root flare, you'll just cut straight down and then bore cut into that cut. And yeah, it falls properly. But I need to get that stuff out of there, you know, because you got to think about what happens when you're skidding other trees someday in the future, or even today. And the shorter the stump, the easier it is to get the trees up and over it. And obviously I'm going to bore cut from that side, because I'd be all into that root if I was trying to bore cut from this side. So you do got to look at the roots. All that stuff matters when you're planting the tree. And Man, it's a shame. This is the kind of tree I just simply don't want to have to take. You know, I could actually drop it that way. Then I don't have to thread the needle. But then I have to take that tree out because if I pull that way, it's going to go right into that stump, right into that tree. I don't have the winch to put a snatch block on it, you know what I'm saying? So I got to be able to get up and out of there with a fairly long tree. You see, when you leave a stump like that one right there, now I got to pull around it or pull over it. So it's possible, I'm probably not going to have to, but it's possible I'm going to have to go back and cut that stump. And see, that was a lesson of the last 20 years for me, is when I cut them like that and left those stumps up like that, invariably they turn into being a pain in the neck to have to pull around, to pull over, or running into with a tractor if you didn't see them. So not only is there the financial, getting the most out of the tree you can out of cutting them right close to the ground, but there's also the aftermath when you have to deal with skidding and other operations in the woods in the future. So yeah, that's what I used to do. And sometimes I get a little lazy, but when I can get them close to the ground, I get more out of the log, especially on a tree like this. I want to get as much as I can, but it creates less hassles, you know, when I have to do subsequent operations like skidding and getting in the woods with the tractor for other reasons, you know. I think I'm just going to try this one on that tree. I might be a little shy on the bar length, we'll see, but I know it's going to stress me a whole lot less. This is getting to be a pretty old saw. I mean, look at that primer bulb. That saw is based on a 2014 era carcass, and you know, it's just a basic build that I've done for a long time. This one is really no different, and this is when I started doing the thin gasket, you know, 10-15 thousandths gasket. So I didn't have to machine the cylinder to get 15 to 20 thousandths change in the squish, because the stock gasket's like 30 thousandths, you know what I'm saying? That with a pop-up gave me a compression hit for no machining. And the other funny thing about it is, by keeping that 10-15 thousandths gasket in there, I eliminated most of the clearance issues between the cylinder and the cases, so it just made it a whole lot simpler. And you get the same kind of a performance hit as my more complex builds that I was doing before that, you know. In the, I guess, the 2013 to 2016 era, I was actually taking the cylinders and doing a little bit of porting on them, and taking the base, the flange, and the base gasket area of the cylinder. I was cutting that back to match what I was looking for in squish, 18 thousandths. I'd set it up, measure it, and cut it to match. I guess on this I still have to take the flange a little bit, but the rest of it I don't have to. Just a very simple build on these things, and it's pretty effective. Muffler mod's critical on those old saws. You know, get the heat out of them. But anyway, it is bone dry, so let me see if I can get some gas in it. And this is where the primer bulb begins to pay off, because it'll draw that gas up into the carburetor. Hopefully it'll start easy. You know, I am going to wish for a little bit longer bar, but I want to show you something if I can, again, about the muffler mod, and also about that cut. Now I'm going to get down into a little bit of that wood, but I'll probably get down another 6-8 inches, and still have enough of a moment arm or a lever to jack that tree over to where I want it to be. But look where the muffler is when I have the saw right up against it on that tree, because the bar is 24 inches. But even if it was 28, it'd be the same. And my point is, that's where the chainsaw is, right? And I've got my muffler back out of the way where it's not into the tree, even with that little bit of a curvature. And I got enough bar, I think, for this tree. We'll see. But I'm not going to say anything about the alternative, but that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. But this is also because I also often face cut from this side, why I focus on that direction versus having it in both directions. Because if I had it in both directions, what's hitting that and blowing back up in my face? So this is the stuff that I wish people would focus on more when you're talking about work saws. You'll sacrifice a little bit of the bling to get a little bit more function, you know what I'm saying? This is what crosses my mind when I'm modding the saw. I know I'm going to eventually be up against a tree, or I'm going to be up against a log noodling. And I know what's going to happen to the muffler when I'm wedging it into the tree. So when I do my muffler mods, I have to be cognizant of how that saw is actually going to be worked. Now there's other people who just stand up over the top of trees and point down and buck them, you know what I'm saying? That's what they do. They don't got to deal with this stuff. So in that scenario, a different saw configuration makes a lot more sense. And in my mind, I like all saws. I really don't care. So I enjoy, especially the ones that are creative. I enjoy the creative builders. And there's a couple out there that just build some pretty outrageous stuff. And I think that's pretty cool. But I'll just stick to my boring builds. You know, block and tackle. And this is why. This is my world. So we continue. And part of the definition of a good saw for me is I set it down, I pick it up to go back to work, it better restart. You know? You know, now at this point, you know, I've got a fair amount of hinge. See it right there? It'll pull a little bit there, but it shouldn't pull much. And it's a beautiful tree. Beautiful tree. So, you know, I got a couple inches there. A little thin on that one, but I'm pushing my boundaries a little bit on the hinge. And because it's ash, and you can when it's alive. When it's dead, you can't. You got to be dead freaking on with a dead ash, because oftentimes it'll just collapse and crumble. And the reason why I'm doing 2 wedges is because there's an ever so slight lean back, and I pushed them in pretty far to help give it a little bit of lift. And one thing I've done is, like, it wants to go that way a little bit, so I'll actually jack that side up with the wedge just to sort of help it along. So this may end up being a really graphic demonstration as to why cutting stump low makes a difference. Here, I think I'll get it over the top. I'll give it a little bit of lift. And plus there's a bit of an angle I've cut into it. So I'm going to set the camera back here. And then you think about it. Think about the guys who just make a vertical cut and leave the root flares. I think that's just damn lazy is what it is. And it will cost you someday if you don't keep your stump clean. No pun intended. This didn't come out good, but you know what I'm talking about. And I think we're going to see why. So there you have it. You know, why you actually cut the root flare off instead of just doing vertical cuts. It may look like you're smart online, but it creates situations like that over time, and I would consider that just damn lazy. And like I was. So you learn over the years. And using equipment like that, you don't have the big skidders that can just pull right through that. But even in that case, if I did, I would have broke the log once it got hung on that tree. So keeping the, you know, stump as low as you can. I probably could have got another 3 or 4 inches out of that stump with a different saw, you know, and that adds up over time if I was a true production logger. But also getting that big old root flare off of there keeps me from having a situation like that over time, you know. So here we are. That's a nice log. Let's get that up to the landing and get on the dozer and start working on that road. Yeah, I gotta get that one bucked up and out of the way. It's pretty much all center rot. And there's firewood in there, but I'll do that out here in the woods. I'm not going to waste my time in diesel. I need to cut that stump because it's going to bite me if I don't. And that's another case of keeping your stumps clean. And I have back there, you're not going to see it, but there's 2 trees, possibly 3. One of them is a blighted beech. I just need to get it down to get it out of the way. And then the same with a maple that has a pretty short saw log, but I need to get it out of the way because when that tree I'm going to cut comes down, it's going to hit all those branches up high, and I know it's coming back at me. I know there's going to be debris coming back at me if I leave those trees, you know. And one of the things like that, that's all firewood, but it has to sit for a while. You can see there's a lot of center rot in there. There was a bunch of ants and stuff, so those trees were not going to help my woodlot. I had to get them down. Well, you don't have to do anything, but I chose to get them down to sort of start cleaning up the bad wood so the better trees can grow and flourish. And I'll come back, you know, just like on the other side where I went back this year and got out about 11 cords of wood. I'll be back when this stuff dries up. Just like the woods I showed you in one of the prior videos we'd gone through where I'd logged it. It all looked like this when it first came down. All the tops are everywhere. And I go back through, you know, into the winter time, drag out the tops for fun. That's part of the hobby for me, is to take the tops and turn them into firewood. And there's a couple of other people who I let come onto the place, and they grab tops and turn them into firewood. We eventually drag a lot of it out. And, you know, I guess in fact to the left here, that's the one we just took down the other day, but the rest of it, we just logged a couple years back. Looked just like it. There was tops everywhere. And like I said, we go back and get them. And I'm a little surprised in how much ash I left. I thought I had got most of the ash. I guess I didn't. There's one right next to us, for example. And so I'm going to go and pick some of those. And then I'm going to pick a couple of the maples that are in a cluster, like I was saying before. And when I see a blighted or a beech that's getting some of that fungus blight, it's just coming down if it's in the way. If I can, you know, if I have the time, it's in the vicinity where I'm working, I'm just going to take them down. This is going to be another classic case of why you got to keep your stumps clean. We're going to have to pull enough over, and that nice root and low cut stump, I think that tree is not going to hang on that. If I had a high stump, there's no way I'm going to get this log all the way down around. Same with this stump. Well, it's going to be a tricky one anyway. A very very heavy log.